You are not helping. Thanks for all your help, guys. I'm an expert, and Darlie was stabbed in the abdomen 18,000 times.
Okay, just reacting to Rich. This is RJP Darley, find on YouTube. This is episode 42. It says Slides of Proven Innocence, part 5. And I just want to go through this a little bit and see if there are discrepancies and to change those discrepancies. I haven't heard this, so this is the first run. I mean, I've heard it years ago, but I didn't really analyze it. I just listened to it. But this time I'm going to analyze it. Let's see what happens.
In regards to money, and he had a problem with blondes. Blonde Texan women. That's what I do know that much. Apparently, he already had sort of a bias against...
That's Mystery Maverick, Tara, over on her channel, Mystery Maverick. You can see her Darla Routier documentaries over there. She is assuming, and this is what you have to do to be a Darla Routier supporter. You have to bitch about the way that they assassinated her character while you assassinate their character. She's saying that Greg Davis had a problem with blondes. She says, I know that. This one thing that I know. Well, how do you know that? And can you elaborate? Has he been in jail for harassing blondes? Where do you get this information from?
She reminded him of the type of the woman his ex-wife was.
Now she's accusing Greg Davis of going after Darlie because she reminded him of his ex-wife. This is how blatant you have to be a Darlie Routier supporter. Somehow they know all about Greg Davis's prior marriage. They don't show any domestic violence. They don't show any divorce records. They don't show any of what Greg Davis's blonde-headed ex-wife may have said. They just tell you that he didn't like him. He didn't like Darlie because she reminded him of his ex-wife. Okay, free Darlie.
Okay, up his mama. Okay, I'm reading on it right now.
Oh, poor you, Janice. Janice said she might have gone to school with him.
I always thought that.
That's true, I know. His brother does hate him. It's his own brother who believes that Darlie's innocent.
And his own brother said that he knows that he railroaded Darlie.
Okay, let's talk about Bruce Davis because I was there. None of these people that are speaking on Bruce Davis was there. And I debated him and I challenged him and I debated him and I burned him over and over and over again on the facts. Here's what happened. This is Lyle Scott Davis. This is the father of Greg Davis and Bruce Davis. As you can see here, their name, Gregory Scott. Notice this comes first. And this comes first. Right? Scott. Look, Scott. Okay. Now, he owned the Davis Electric Company there in Garland. Greg Davis helped him with that company. Started it up. Now, when he started to get sick, Greg Davis is the one who took him in. Greg Davis is the one who cared for him. And when Lyle finally passed, He left all of his inheritance to Gregory Scott Davis. None to his son Bruce. Nothing. He was cut out of it. I used to argue with Bruce Davis on here. If I need to, I will. He's no longer around because we made him look stupid. But she says, oh, he believes that Dolly is. He came in around 2012. About the end of 2012, he popped in our groups because he was mad at Greg Davis. He said he went to the trial. And I asked him, if your brother was such a hateful, evil person, why would you go watch him in action? So he didn't go to the trial. I argued with him and argued with him and argued with him. And finally, he went away. He was mad at Greg Davis, so he saw a whole bunch of people talking about Greg Davis, and he figured he'd get on that hate train. Why is he not fighting for Darlie today? Why was he so easy to run off? He didn't know the facts of the case at all. He knew he was pissed off at his brother. So that's hearsay. And Tara's taking it like it's fact. It's ridiculous. Let's see. So, Bruce Davis had an agenda against his brother Greg. We all saw it. It only lasted about 6 months on here. He did befriend Darlie Key and all them. Got himself a spot in Kathy Cruz's book, Dateline Purgatory. But he went away. After we made a fool out of him, I wasn't the only one who made a fool out of him. Pam did. I think Christine did. Several people, because he just didn't know the case. He wanted to go on a rant on about Greg Davis. He even said Greg Davis killed his father. He's just mad because he got cut out of the will. Period. Lyle Davis chose to give his inheritance to the son that took care of him in his last years. That's a fact. But let's listen to more.
I was Rick, is from Texas. I say the guy.
He is from Texas. They're from Garland.
I know his brother-in-law, who is a criminal defense attorney here in the Dallas area.
Now, Rich has told me before that he knows Greg Davis personally. I don't know what he's going to say in this, but he explained that there was some court case with him in it.
And his brother-in-law's a pretty guy, and the brother-in-law came to Santa. So, well, I'd love for him to come on here. Tell him some stuff that he told me that I don't know if he'll do that.
Yeah, because they all want to say that behind the scenes, off the record shit. You need on the record shit. That's what we have. On an out support side, we have on the record stuff, not this. He didn't like blonde headed, and she reminded him of his ex-wife, and I know that for a fact. That's what Tara said. Tara was a good friend of Greg Davis and his ex-wife, apparently.
No!
They had tea and crumpets together.
But there are a couple of quotes in here that I thought was kind of funny. Under Greg Davis, on the World Wide Web, under Sherry Moses, which is Darlie Key's sister and Darlie Lynn's aunt, she said, quote, Greg Davis is more of an ass than an asset. I don't know how he can live with himself for putting an innocent woman on death row.
He's talking about Sherry Moses, who, when she came to testify, got wind that they were going to speak about the bruising through Sandy Akins, who was, punished in court for writing notes and taking them out to the people that were waiting to get on the stand. If you're a witness in a court case, you don't go in until after your testimony. But she knew they were going to talk about the bruises, and she changed it to she saw the bruises.
God will be his judge. Very true.
Sherry Moses said she saw all those bruises on Darlie's arms in the hospital. When even the doctors testified they didn't see it, Santos testified that he saw it on follow-up 4 or 5 days later, and they didn't come from something that happened the night of 6/96.
And goes on to say, being part of the Henry Wade administration and obtaining almost 24 death penalty verdicts is a resume I would not want.
Greg Davis had 22 death penalty sentences under his belt. That's what the citizens put him in there for. But I can also tell you that Doug Mulder worked directly under Henry Wade. Henry Wade was his mentor. Doug Mulder also carried a record of 22 death penalty cases. And he defended Darley. So if you are a prosecutor and you prosecute, let's see how many of Greg Davis's prosecutions are overturned. But if your job is to prosecute and you prosecute, that means you're doing a fucking damn good job.
So, anyway, I thought I'd point that out. It doesn't say where he was born. I'm pretty sure he's from Texas, though. I'm sure if I looked deep enough, I could find out.
So,
Still lives in Garland. He's got his dad's old house that his dad gave to him and not Bruce.
Anyway, we'll go ahead and we'll move forward here. So we're going to go back. We're going to go ahead back and get started in the slides. But before we do, since our last episode, I have been down to see Darlene Lynn. Me and Bonnie had a great visit with her. Lots of laughs, just she's very optimistic. We kind of had like a little lunch together, if you will. And we talked pretty much about everything under the sun. Just touched on everything. She's always a lot of fun to talk with because she likes to talk and I like to talk. Me and her could go for hours on end talking about nothing and enjoying ourselves. So, Bonnie, you feel as though there's anything that we should enlighten people about what we talked about, other than, I know she's very optimistic about the future, things are moving forward, with the case and the evidence, and, considering a lady of 52, and, he's been on death row for nearly 26 years, she looks pretty good. And, that's pretty much what I got to report at this time. Bobby, is there anything you'd like to add to that? You were there at the visit with me.
No, there really wasn't much to talk about as far as case progression at this point.
Well, not just that. I'm not gonna, any longer going to any deep.
She just said there was no details for you to go on with, Rich. There's no case progression there. Listen to your wifey. She's smart.
Tale on what's going on with the case. Even if Daryl Lynn says that I can, it causes issues and just animosities and things of that nature. So it's but
that's because you guys don't tell the truth. We've been hearing this for years. This year she's getting out. She's coming home for Christmas. I've been hearing that since at least 2009. Every year. They got new evidence, by God.
They're up. That I don't. What I can say, and also I'm going to say, is this. Some good things on her behalf have come back. And things
no
do
more
look
bullshit,
good
babe,
for
you're
the future.
done.
I can definitely promise
No
you that.
more bullshit, babe, you're done.
So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get moving with the slides here. And Bonnie, do we got to do number 34 or do we start at 35?
I think we're starting at 35.
All right, so let's get up to slide 35. Okay?
Okay, I was only going to do a little bit here, but I know this is going to. All right, let's see.
I'm sorry, and I wanted to point something out that Darlie Lynn told me about Chris Frosch. Chris Frosch and, Darlie Lynn's neighbor, the nurse that lived across the street, they're actually, they're actually cousins, Darlie tell you.
Karen Neal and Chris Frosch.
She said, yeah,
News.
yeah, Karen Neal.
Oh, yeah, Newell's husband. Yeah.
And she told me, she goes, Rich, there's a lot of weird things like that with my case, you know, different relations and stuff like that. But anyway, I've seen that name, and I thought I'd tell folks about that. But I don't think a lot of people know that. Anyway, go ahead, Bonnie. Oh, go ahead, Kara.
Can I just say about that second paragraph? So it says that they chose to invoke the Fifth Amendment privilege at trial in relation to the covert recording, but that's not the case. Actually, Jimmy Patterson, he did testify somewhat, and then obviously wouldn't testify about the recording, but actually Chris Frosch didn't testify at all to anything. So,
She's right. Chris Frost showed up with his attorney and took the fifth on that, and only that. They could have questioned him, but they didn't.
Anything that he
Okay, we can clearly see right here. We can see. The testimony is Mr. Richard Mosty, the defense for Darlie Routier, was questioning Frosch. May we also identify that Mr. Frosch says the same thing? He's referring to that he will not testify about anything that has to do with the surveillance. The court. Mr. Frosch, is that your answer? Mr. Frosch. Yes, sir, it is. Mr. Richard C. Mosty. So now we can't even find out who was involved. The court. Just a minute, gentlemen. All right. The court's ruling stands as it is, as it has been expressed. And if you object to that, we will note your objection. Mr. Richard C. Mosty. No, my inquiry is, I want to know who else was involved. The state ought to know. This is exculpatory evidence. This ought to be turned over. The court. If the state knows who's involved, please inform the defense. Mr. Richard C. Mosty. First there ought to be an investigation going on in Dallas County as we speak about this. The court. Well, there may very well be one, but right now we're on trial in Kerrville. We have completed this hearing, and it's 5 minutes till 9, and at 9 o'clock I intend to continue the cross-examination of Darren Routier, or the direct examination by Mr. Davis. Mr. Richard C. Mosty says, when is the state going to give me that information? It's not going to do me much good in May. The court. Well, the state, Mr. Mosty, we understand that, Mr. Davis. Should you learn the information, please give it to the defense as soon as possible. Mr. Greg Davis. Yes, sir, I will. Mr. C. Mosty. Mr. Richard C. Mosty. And they are under a duty to inquire? The court, yes, they are under duty to inquire. Mr. Richard C. Mosty says, I just want to be clear, because if he never asks it, he might never know it. And what they're talking about is they want to question more about the interception, the recording there with Hagler was on the defense side. And furthermore, if we were given the opportunity to question the officers, we would go into matters such as the procedures utilized, who made the decision to initiate the intercept, the individuals involved in the intercept, or how it was conducted, and any and all information that was learned through the intercept, including matters, not only those matters on the tape, but also matters that may have been overheard but not recorded by officers. And here's Greg Davis working with them. Also, before the jury comes in, if I could inform the court that during the break, I delivered to Mr. Mulder and Mr. Mosty the names of 2 officers I was informed actually did the taping. So now they have those names. And here's where he shot for mistrial. Based on, they asked for a mistrial based on they couldn't ask them about the surveillance. And the court said, all right, thank you. Now that you made those objections prior to the ruling, the court's ruling would have been the same. Regarding the motion for a mistrial, the motion for mistrial is denied. With that in mind, so, Your Honor, I will be very brief here with the court. Your Honor, is just so that we are clear on the ruling. Your Honor, it's our understanding that the ruling of both, of course, Frosch and Patterson, have invoked their Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination under the Fifth Amendment. We understand the court's ruling in that light of the invocation of the Fifth Amendment right, and we are prohibited from inquiring from these 2 officers. I assume other officers may be involved in this intercept. As to that one, we are prohibited from cross-examining and questioning the officers regarding that intercept and all facts surrounding it, that intercept. That's it. They weren't allowed to talk about the tape, which wasn't a crime. It was not a crime.
He did in the case. He didn't testify to anything. If you read the transcript of his testimony, you know, it's semantics. It's basically court proceedings. It's not, there's no information. He gives no information about what he saw that night, what he did, who.
Nor was he questioned about it. And it was clear that they could not question them on the surveillance at all. That's it. They couldn't question about that. That was clear before the jury came in. And the defense chose not to question Detective Chris Frosch on anything. They stopped questioning Detective Jimmy Patterson after he took the Fifth, but they could have, and they didn't. They wanted to make a big to-do about them taking the Fifth.
Well, what was I said? There's nothing. He literally goes up on stand. By the time he goes up on stand, yeah, he just says absolutely nothing about his involvement in the whole case, and he's meant to be, you know, the second.
So what was he asked about his involvement in the case while he was on the stand? Mystery, Maverick? Or is that a mystery? He wasn't asked anything on the stand. And since he was on the stand, as you say, he would have had to answer if he was asked anything about the case-related evidence and the evidence against Darla Routier. He wasn't asked anything. Why? Why?
You know, this is sort of lead investigator under Jimmy Patterson, so we got like half testimony from Patterson and then no testimony from Chris Frosch.
And see, she's absolutely correct. But what she doesn't want to tell you is that is the defense's choice. The defense chose not to question any further. Why? Because they know that those 2 officers would just smash them, any kind of defense they had. They don't want to question them. That's why.
Well, actually, it wasn't just in regards to the recording, is what I'm saying.
It was just in regards to the recording, and what she's telling is flat out misinformation, because I just read it to you. You can also read Jimmy Patterson's testimony, where it is specifically the Fifth Amendment was taken only on the subject of the police surveillance at Rest Haven. They were free to ask them of any other question. It's clear in the trial testimony.
I mean, the things that we know about Jimmy Patterson today are not very pleasant to hear. We know that he was a very corrupt individual. We know now that...
Okay, so what kind of charges was Jimmy Patterson brought up on? Where's the paperwork? How corrupt was he? What was it he was doing exactly that made him corrupt? Can you give us an example? Bet you thought I froze, didn't you?
He was because he was the narcotics officer prior to being a lead detective in a double homicide, but which I find to be a little bit strange as well. But I do know, and what we know now is that he was paid, for all intents and purposes, hush money to look the other way when he was a narcotics officer.
He says they know that he was paid hush money. Well, how do you know that? Where's any evidence of that at, Rich? You realize that you have to make up these little stories about everyone else's character when the defense didn't make up, or the prosecution didn't make up any stuff about Darlie's character. She was going to the strip clubs. She did send her child off with a man who molested her. Neighbors did testify that she wasn't watching her kids. Those are things that are not made up.
And just different various things. Now, he pleaded the fifth. He pleaded the fifth at trial when I was talking about the surveillance that they were doing at the cemetery on the routiers. And he pleaded the fifth on that. Now, this is my opinion, folks, even though it's a bit minute. As far as the relevance of the case, the thing that really gets to me about it, you're the lead homicide detective and a double homicide and an attempted homicide. And you're pleading the fifth? You're the one
Well, I mean, that.
He's pleading the fifth by suggestion of the court. See, just because you don't understand the law doesn't make you have an opinion on it. He accused him of a crime in open court. Now, him putting a bug at that cemetery site had nothing to do with Darlie Routier's case. Think about it. He's trying to build a case on Jimmy Patterson while they're discussing another case. Okay, so the right thing for Jimmy Patterson to do is say, okay, we're not sure of the laws on this. I plead the fifth until I get an attorney. Then he got an attorney and was found not guilty. They did nothing wrong. But Doug Motor wanted to hold court during Darlie's trial for a crime that was in a federal jurisdiction. So even though that's why the judge suggested it. The legalities of it all. They just don't understand the law.
Not only that, Rich, he didn't know any of the information, so even what he did testify to, he didn't actually know anything that was going on. He's meant to be the head of the case. He's meant to be the lead investigator. He knew nothing about what.
He knew exactly what was going on, and he testified pretty clearly at the bond hearing and several different hearings. She's just trying to mush fake his character.
What was going on, and he couldn't even take any notes. People actually approached him at the crime scene about the dark black /car, a suspicious car in the area. He didn't write it down. He didn't
write it down because they stopped the car. He didn't need to write it down. He knew what she said. It was Karen Neal. And Beja Jovel, actually. He said everything we know about the car that came through there that night is because Jimmy Patterson, got the testimony of Beja Jovel out to us.
Didn't tell anyone else to write it down. He didn't know what was going on.
You didn't need to tell anybody to write that down. You know about the suspicious black car that came around there that night, don't you? You know why you know? Because those people told Jimmy Patterson. That's why you know.
And he's meant to be the person who is the hub of the investigation. He should know everything that's going on. He didn't talk to any emergency services. He didn't even talk to first responders.
That's a damn lie. He did. Briefly. He went through with the lead investigators.
People supplement.
So if he didn't talk to these people, how did he come up with the arrest warrant? They had all the points of why they wanted to arrest her and indict her.
Of course, and then that's all he did. You actually talk to them and say, you know, what happened? What did you say? What did you...
Well, then how would he have known? It even says. Just quickly. He questioned him, and have you brought your notes with you? Yes, sir, I have. So he wrote notes and he got them there in court. His case file, he's got a file. They identified Exhibit 72 as Jimmy Patterson's notebook. And this includes your entire file on Darla Routier, yes. He arrives at the scene about 3:30. Fire personnel, uniformed officers, CID. Grant Jack, Criminal Investigations Division. Talk about who he came to Kerrville with. I don't know. I think they had already left. I talked to a firefighter. Okay, did I interview the paramedics who had been at the scene? No. They had a written statement that they went by, so they didn't have to stop them from doing their duties. First thing I did with the scene was I met with the officer in charge, Matt Walling. Yes. He talked to another officer. He briefed me on what he knew, and I just went up to the front door, and there was an officer waiting at the front door, and he asked me if I was going inside, and I said no. I just veered inside for a second. He wanted to stay outside because he didn't want to further damage any. He didn't need. They were going to investigate and tell him. That's why he's the lead. Then he's going on about Walling, telling him about the screen being cut. And he goes in and he looks around at the screen and stuff. Small black car. See how the court overruled Yeah, he kept overruling it. Or what, the black car? And there you go. He made a note. Mr. Maverick, you're so wrong in so many different ways on this case that maybe you should just delete all of the stuff that you put on there. Because the trial testimony clearly makes you look silly. Yeah, he's testifying about what he saw. He knew it very, very clearly because he made a note of it. And then he went over and talked to Karen Neal. Okay, he didn't do it. He don't know if anybody else. Okay, that's my bad. He looked over reports. Hey, see, he goes by their notes. He doesn't need to talk to them. They have been interviewed, but not by you. That's because he's the lead investigator. They get interviewed by officers, and then they give the record over to the lead. I read their notes. He went through their notes. But you can clearly see that Doug Mulder tried to nail him on this stuff, but he did make notes, Mystery Maverick. Please read the testimony before you make any assertions about Darlie Routier's innocence. Justice for Devin and Damon, and long live Charlie Kirk.